In a world that's changing faster than we can keep up, it is so easy to feel lost. So today, we're going to break down a really powerful mental model for not just surviving, but actually thriving in all this uncertainty. So let me ask you, are you looking at things like AI and these crazy shifts in the job market and just this constant flood of new information and feeling a little bit of anxiety about your career? Well, if you are definitely not alone. But here's the thing. What if we could flip that anxiety on its head? Let's dig into a strategy that can turn that feeling of uncertainty into a real sense of agency and control. All right, so here's the plan. We're going to start with this new age of uncertainty, then get into your first line of defense, the principle of action, and the long game of compounding. And we'll wrap up with your very first move. Okay, let's get into it. All right, section 1, the new age of uncertainty. And the subtitle here is key. Complacency is the new risk. Because, in a world where tech and info are just moving at light speed, the biggest danger isn't actually the change itself. Nope. The real risk is just standing still, thinking that what you already know is going to be enough. That's the real enemy here. I mean, just think about it for a second. That old script, right? The one that goes, you study hard, you get a good job, you climb the ladder. That whole thing is basically fading away. It's becoming obsolete. And just relying on your degree or your current job title, that is not a safe bet anymore. The real security, the kind that lasts, comes from your ability to adapt, to learn, and to pick up new skills on the fly. Okay, so what's the antidote here? How do we fight back against all this anxiety? Well, this is your first line of defense, putting curiosity over confidence. It all starts with this really simple but honestly profound shift in your mindset. It's about moving away from that need to always be confident and right, and instead moving toward this insatiable desire to just learn. And this quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson just nails it, doesn't it? The universe of things we don't know it's infinitely bigger than that tiny little island of stuff we do know. And when you really get that, when you stay humble and curious, it keeps you open. It keeps you adaptable. And honestly, it makes you way less likely to get left behind by new ideas, or even worse, manipulated by outdated ones. And there's actually a scientific term for this, which I think is so cool. Psychologists call it the need for cognition. And this isn't just about being smart, okay? It's about genuinely enjoying the process of thinking hard. It's that feeling of loving a good puzzle, of questioning things, of digging into a complex problem. That is the engine that drives the apprentice. All right, so you've got the curiosity part down. What's next? Well, that brings us to our second pillar, the principle of action. And the idea here is simple. Learn by doing, not just by studying. We have got to move from just passively consuming information to actively creating something. Because look, real skill, true competence, that stuff is only built through practice, period. And this chart just lays out the difference so clearly. Look at this. The student mindset consumes information. The apprentice mindset applies it. The student is terrified of failure. The apprentice learns from it, sees it as data. A student seeks a credential, a piece of paper. An apprentice seeks actual competence, the ability to do the thing. And maybe the biggest one, the student waits for permission, while the apprentice just takes action. We have to make that jump. But I get it. Taking action can sound super intimidating, right? We immediately picture taking some huge, risky leap of faith. But investor Monish Pabrai says that's basically an illusion. This idea that you need a ton of money or some perfect high-stakes plan, that's the very thing that paralyzes most of us. The reality is the greatest innovators almost always start with tiny, clever, low-risk steps. I mean, just look at Richard Branson. When he wanted to start Virgin Atlantic, did he go out and risk millions of dollars buying a plane? No way. His initial capital risk was $0. All he did was pick up the phone and call Boeing to ask a simple question. Hey, would you guys be willing to lease me a 747? He swapped out huge amounts of cash for a little bit of creative thinking. It's the perfect proof that your first step does not have to be some giant, terrifying leap. So what does a low-risk action look like for you and me today? Well, podcaster Chris Williamson has this amazing exercise he calls the fake podcast. It's so simple. You just grab a friend, pick a topic you're trying to learn, and hit record on your phone. Then for 30 minutes, you just talk about it, pretending you have an audience. Why? Because that simple act of trying to explain it out loud forces your brain to connect the dots in a way that just reading never will. And that's the whole idea right there. It's that Feynman technique in action. The crucial takeaway is this. Action creates clarity.
It is the absolute fastest way to get from just knowing about something to actually knowing how to do it. Okay, so now let's see how all these little actions build on each other over time.
And this brings us to our final and maybe the most crucial pillar of the apprentice mindset, playing the long game of compounding. It's all about small steps leading to giant leaps. Look, true, meaningful success is almost never an overnight thing. It's the quiet, often invisible result of small, consistent efforts just stacking up one on top of the other for a long, long time. Chris Williamson calls this latent leverage, and I love that term. Look at this chart. You put in the effort in year 1, year 2, year 3, and for a long time the results look, well, flat. They're almost invisible. But you are not just spinning your wheels. You're building something. You're layering on skills. And then suddenly you hit a tipping point, and all that stored up, latent effort creates this breakthrough moment where everything just explodes upward. And when you really internalize this, it changes everything. It just takes all the pressure off. The goal isn't to have the perfect, flawless routine tomorrow. No, the goal is to still be in the game, still be winning 50 years from now. And thinking that way, well, it gives you permission to make your first steps ridiculously small. So small, like Chris Williamson says, that you literally can't say no to them.
Okay, so we've covered the 3 pillars: curiosity, action, and patience. So what now? How do we actually put this all together and start, like, today? How do we go from just watching this to actually being an apprentice and taking that first step out of the fog?
So let's just recap the whole mindset here. Number 1, stay curious and humble. 2, prioritize action over theory. 3, take small, low-risk steps. 4, play the long game. And finally, remember this incredibly powerful idea from former intelligence officer Evie Pouporis: movement generates information. When you're stuck, just moving in any direction, even if it feels like the wrong one, gives you new feedback, new data that helps you figure out your next, better move. So really, it all comes down to this one question. This is what I want you to take away from this whole thing. It is not about having the perfect 5-year plan all mapped out. It's about finding one tiny, manageable action that you can take right now. What's one thing that's so small you can't say no to it? Read one page of a book? Send that one email you've been putting off? Record a 1-minute voice note explaining an idea to yourself? Whatever it is, that's your first step.